Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm John Tucker. Here are the stories we're following today.
John, the S&P 500 is coming into the day on a 5-day winning streak. Another inflation report did little to alter bets that the Fed will start cutting rates in September. Laura Rame is chief economist at FS Investments.
I think they will cut 25. I think that given today's context, a 50 basis point rate cut would not be a bad idea, just to correct for the fact that they've made progress on inflation. They've got room. They're at 525. They could take us down 50 basis points. However, I think they are worried that would signal big trouble to markets.
FS Investments chief economist Laura Rame says she is in favor of front-loading rate cuts over the next few meetings.
And the consumer is going to be in focus this morning. We'll get the July reading on retail sales. The forecast is for a gain of 0.4%. Also, before the opening bell, earnings from the world's biggest retailer. And Bloomberg's Tom Busney previews Walmart earnings.
Well, because of steady inflation pressures and higher borrowing costs, investors expect to see comp sales at Walmart rose by about 3.4% last quarter as consumers look for bargains, not just on groceries, but also electronics, clothing, and more. Walmart also had been pursuing faster-growing areas like advertising and marketplace. So Bloomberg consensus calls for revenue of $168.46 billion, adjusted earnings per share of 65 cents. Tom Busby, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, Tom, thank you. In Europe, the UK maintained a steady pace of recovery from last year's recession. Gross domestic product in Britain rose 0.6% in the second quarter after a 0.7% gain in the first 3 months of the year.
And plenty of economic news out of Asia overnight. Japan's economy grew faster in the second quarter than analysts forecast. And China saw signs of stabilization that included slowing declines in home prices and better than expected retail sales.
Now, John, to a developing story tied to this year's campus protests over the war in the Middle East. The president of one of the universities at the epicenter of the demonstrations has resigned. Bloomberg's Kimberly Adams has the details from New York.
Columbia University President Manu Shafik says she's stepping down effective immediately. In a statement, she says it's been a period of turmoil, and after reflecting over the summer, she's decided that moving on will best enable Columbia to traverse the challenges ahead. Shafik's departure comes less than 3 weeks before classes begin at Columbia, signaling there may be more turmoil ahead. Shafik called police to remove campus protesters at the end of last school year. Columbia's board says it regretfully accepts Shafik's resignation. House Speaker Mike Johnson, who visited in April to condemn campus anti-Semitism, says her departure is long overdue. In New York, Kimberly Adams, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, thanks, Kimberly. In the Middle East today, Gaza's ceasefire talks are set to resume in Qatar. Israel is sending a team to Doha to meet with U.S., Qatari, and Egyptian mediators. Hamas is not taking part, but sources say the Iran-backed group will be briefed afterward. Mediators have spent months on a three-phase plan where Hamas would release hostages, Israel would pull out of Gaza, and Palestinians would be released from prisons. Axios is reporting former President Trump spoke with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about the deal yesterday.
And as for Vice President Kamala Harris, she's shifting her focus to the economy with a call for a federal ban on food and grocery price gouging. The Harris campaign says it's part of a broader set of proposals to reduce consumer costs. She plans to direct the Federal Trade Commission and other agencies to investigate and penalize corporations that violate the rules and to find other ways of tackling price fixing and other anti-competitive practices in the food and grocery industries.
And former President Trump downplaying the significance of the economy as he shifts campaign strategy. More from Bloomberg's Ed Baxter.
Trump has traditionally had an advantage when it comes to the economy as an election issue, but campaigning in North Carolina talking about his aides, he said they wanted to do a speech on the economy. They say it's the most important subject. I'm not so sure it is. Then he went on to say inflation is the most important, but then added that's part of the economy. He also seemed to change his mind on the Affordable Care Act.
She goes around saying, well, he's going to get rid of the health. No, I'm going to keep it unless we can come up with something that's better for you and less expensive for you. Otherwise, we're not doing it.
Congressional Republicans have tried to repeal it. Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Ed, thank you. And the two vice presidential candidates may be closing in on a debate. Fox News is reporting Republican J.D. Vance has agreed to debate Democrat Tim Walz on CBS October 1st. Vance told Fox, quote, I actually think we should do more than one debate.
And turning back to the markets, Nathan, shares of Cisco Systems up more than 6%. The biggest maker of computer networking equipment delivered a bullish revenue forecast for the current period thanks to a rebound in orders. The company also announced plans to cut thousands of jobs as part of a strategy shift.
We're also watching shares of Ulta Beauty this morning, John. They are soaring nearly 17%. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway disclosed a small stake in the retail cosmetics chain during the second quarter. The billionaire also took up a position in aerospace company Heiko, and that stock is up more than 4%. Buffett also added to his position in SiriusXM, and that stock is higher by more than 9.5%. And a note, Bloomberg Radio provides programming to SiriusXM satellite radio.
And shares of Nike up more than 3%. Bill Ackman's Pershing Square Capital disclosed a new stake of about 3 million shares in the world's largest sportswear company.
Overall, John, hedge funds continued to buy into some of the biggest tech companies in the second quarter, including Apple, while trimming positions in NVIDIA. They also boosted exposures to other AI-related firms like Amazon and Taiwan Semiconductor. Michael Burry continued to boost his stake in China's tech giant Alibaba while slashing his overall equity portfolio in half. Microsoft was cut or reduced by 140 investors. That was the biggest such reduction.
And a big charitable gift from the parents of the world's second richest person. Jeff Bezos' parents, Mike and Jackie, donated more than $185 million to the Aspen Institute this week to establish a new center focused on young people. Jeff Bezos has a net worth of $193 billion. That's according to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. And that brings us to 5:07 on Wall Street. Time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. And for that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, John. The U.S. government's landmark drug price negotiations will save Americans $7.5 billion in its inaugural year. That's according to the Biden administration, who says it's a first step toward driving down costs by reducing its world-leading tab to pharmaceutical companies. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services say the savings will be split between senior citizens who will likely pay $1.5 billion less in out-of-pocket costs for 10 medications. The government, as its health insurance program for the elderly, will pay $6 billion less to treat heart failure, blood clots, diabetes, and other conditions in 2026. The World Health Organization has declared a global public health emergency over the spread of Mpox cases in Africa. Health officials say the virus, formerly known as monkeypox, is spread through close contact with an infected person, animal, or material. Dr. John Brownstein is at Harvard Medical School.
The Democratic Republic of Congo, an escalation of cases. Over 15,000 cases, over 500 deaths. And we've seen a rapid spread, not just in that country, but in neighboring countries.
Dr. Brownstein spoke to ABC. An outbreak here in the U.S. in 2022 was largely brought under control. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy will appoint his former chief of staff to replace Senator Bob Menendez, who was convicted on federal corruption charges last month. According to people familiar with the matter, the appointment of George Helmy, a fellow Democrat, will be announced tomorrow. The move ensures Democrats maintain their narrow 51-49 Senate majority. Menendez last month announced he would resign effective August 20th after Democratic colleagues threatened to expel him following the conviction. Ukraine is continuing its offensive into Russia, gaining hundreds of square miles of Russian territory. This is the first time Russia has been invaded by another nation since World War II. Former U.S. Ambassador to Russia, John Sullivan.
Another surprise by the Ukrainians. We've seen it time and time again over the course of this war, whether it was resisting the initial Russian invasion, sinking the Russian Black Sea flagship, and now this invasion of Russia itself.
Ukraine has now opened a hotline for Russian residents who want to evacuate to Ukraine. Meanwhile, a senior Russian military official is vowing to launch an all-out offensive. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg, John.
Michael, thanks. And it's now 5:10 on Wall Street, and it's time for the Bloomberg Sports Update. For that, here's John Stashower.
All right, John. Aaron Judge has been on the verge of a milestone, and he reached it. 8th inning in Chicago.
3-0. Judge drives it. Deep left field. Way way back and gone. Goodbye. On a 3-0 pitch, Judge lasers home run number 300, the fastest ever to hit that mark.
On WFAN, 3-run shot off the White Sox. Chad Call, Judge's 43rd home run this season, and he reaches 300 for his career, way faster than anyone else. The record was the Pirates' Ralph Kiner, the longtime Mets announcer. He reached 300 in 1,087 games. Judge got there in 955. Austin Wells also homered, had 3 hits, drove in 3. Another home run for Juan Soto after 3 the night before. The Yanks pulled away late. Beat the White Sox 10-2. Mets also pulled away late at Citi Field. 6 runs, 7th inning, a 9-1 rout of Oakland to end a 4-game losing streak. Pete Alonso, 4 hits, including his 26th home run. Francisco Lindor hit his 23rd. Atlanta won 13-2 at San Francisco. Michael Harris had been out 2 months. His first at-bat in his return, a first-inning grand slam. Red Sox blew a 3-run 9th-inning lead. Lost to Texas 9-7-10. Baltimore beat Washington 4-1. 8th straight win for Houston. Arizona and San Diego both stay hot in the NL West. Both were 500 teams at the All-Star break just last month, and they're now 16 games over. Several NFL players either holding out or at least unhappy with their contracts, and one of them was Matthew Judon in New England. The Patriots have traded their 4-time Pro Bowl linebacker to Atlanta for a 3rd-round pick. Vikings rookie quarterback J.J. McCarthy went in for knee surgery, not believed to be season-ending, but a worse injury was revealed. McCarthy won't play at all this season. John Stashauer, Bloomberg Sports. John and Nathan.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager. It's a sudden announcement now that the campus protests that rocked the country earlier this year have died down, but the president of one of the universities at the center of the turmoil, Shafik of Columbia University, has resigned, effective immediately. It could be a sign of more turmoil to come as new fall classes are set to begin. Joining us for more, Bloomberg News senior editor Bill Ferries. Bill, good morning. You do have to wonder what sparked this decision to step down now, less than 3 weeks before classes get back up at Columbia.
Yeah, President Shafik was really still basically, only about a year into her term there. And I'm sure it was a far more challenging year than she probably expected. These protests, in some ways, given the news flow, it seems like it was quite a while ago. But we're really just talking about really April, late April, and even into early May. It was the end of the school year. And then a lot of those those protests broke up as police were called in, and students basically went home for the summer. The students are coming back now. And there are some, questions or concerns about whether those pro-Palestinian protests will start up again, whether they will paralyze these campuses. But Shafik is the third Ivy League president to depart from, as kind of a result of all the turmoil we saw on the campuses at the end of the school year.
And I wonder if we've gotten some hint about whether we could see more campus protests on the campaign trail. I mean, Vice President Harris, just embarking on her new presidential campaign, has had to deal with some pro-Palestinian hecklers at some of her rallies.
She has. I mean, for the Democrats, as we've talked about before, they're really kind of threading a narrow needle here on the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Vice President Harris has come out and said that she thinks there needs to be a peace deal now. Of course, negotiators have been trying to talk about a peace deal, try to reach agreement for literally several months now, and it doesn't seem like things are all that much closer. And at this point, the Mideast is also in even more tension, awaiting a potential Iranian response to the killing of the Hamas political leader in Tehran just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and even as all this is going on, it's like presidential candidates sort of have to spin plates. I mean, Vice President Harris this week is trying to put focus on her economic agenda and the rollout of her vision for the economy.
Yeah, she is Vice President Harris expected to give kind of the first major policy speech on the economy Friday in North Carolina, which, interestingly enough, is a place both campaigns seem to be putting a lot more time and money into. We got a little hint of what might be in that speech late Wednesday night. The campaign said that she is going to talk about trying to go after what she called price gouging among food and grocery stores that she says has kind of contributed to some of the price increases we've seen in recent years. Inflation, of course, has been something that hurt President Joe Biden, and voters continue to say they have more confidence in former President Trump's ability to manage the economy. So I think this is Vice President Harris's attempt to start to get ahead of that a little bit.
Which makes it all the more interesting in our last 30 seconds that when former President Trump was in North Carolina himself just yesterday, he was talking about the economy, but kind of saying, well, maybe I don't want to talk about the economy.
Yeah, it's a hard one to figure. I mean, voters give him higher marks on it. He said that maybe that's not the biggest issue anymore. Inflation isn't. I mean, of course, inflation has come down, but many voters or most voters would still say that prices seem quite high. So it does seem like a winning issue for the former president right now. It's not clear why he would want to walk away from that.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Today, your morning brief on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed by 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, and Bloomberg 960 in San Francisco.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, SiriusXM, the iHeartRadio app, and on Bloomberg.com. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm John Tucker. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.